Sir, I need you to move to seat 32B. We have a family that needs to sit together, and your seat is the only one available in this section that can accommodate them," the flight attendant said, her smile professional but firm. Sergeant Thomas Ashton, 78, a veteran with a noticeable limp, looked up from his aisle seat in economy comfort, the one he had carefully selected months ago for a little extra leg room on the long flight. "But this is my assigned seat," he said quietly. "I specifically booked it due to a service-related knee injury." The flight attendant's smile did not waver. "I understand, sir, but we need to prioritize families. It is just for this flight." 9 minutes later, as Sergeant Ashton uncomfortably settled into the cramped middle seat at the back, the cockpit door opened. The captain emerged, scanned the cabin, and walked directly to him, stopping in the aisle and rendering a crisp salute. "If you believe respect for service should never be compromised for convenience, type honor our vets below." Sergeant Thomas Tom Ashton, United States Marine Corps, retired, carried the map of the journeys of his life etched onto his face, and in the slight persistent limp that favored his left leg. A souvenir from a long-ago firefight in a place most people could not pronounce. At 78, he was lean, his silver hair neatly combed, his eyes, though faded with age, still holding the keen observational skills honed over decades. He was traveling from his small home in Arizona to his granddaughter's college graduation in Boston, a cross-country flight he had been looking forward to. Despite the usual discomforts of air travel, knowing the challenges a long flight posed for his knee, which had never fully recovered, Tom had meticulously booked his seat months in advance. 15C, an aisle seat in the economy comfort section of transcontinental flight 308. The extra few inches of legroom and easier access to stand and stretch were not a luxury, but a necessity to manage the chronic pain. He had used his modest pension savings to pay the extra for this specific seat. Wanting to arrive for his granddaughter's special day without being crippled by the journey, he had boarded early as per his group, stowed his small carry-on, and settled into 15C. Relieved to have the space he needed, he was looking forward to a quiet flight, perhaps reading the book he had brought. The flight was nearly full, the usual pre-departure bustle filling the cabin. As passengers found their seats and stowed their luggage, Tom was absently watching the controlled chaos when a flight attendant, a woman in her late 30s named Susan with a crisp uniform and an air of harried efficiency, approached his row. "Excuse me, sir," she said, addressing Tom directly, her smile polite but strained. "We have a family, a mother and 2 young children who were unfortunately separated by our booking system. They need to sit together, and your seat 15C along with the 2 beside it is the only block of 3 available in this cabin section that can accommodate them." Tom looked up surprised. "My seat. But I specifically selected and paid for this seat 15C months ago due to a medical need for legroom." Susan's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I understand, sir, and we appreciate your cooperation. Sometimes these reassignments are unavoidable to accommodate families. It is airline policy to prioritize keeping families, especially those with young children, together. I appreciate the need for families to sit together," Tom replied calmly. "But I also have a need for this specific type of seat. Is there another aisle seat available in this section? Or perhaps an upgrade given the inconvenience?" Susan glanced at her tablet, tapping quickly. "I am afraid all other aisle seats in economy comfort are occupied and first class is completely full. The only seat I can offer you at this point is 32B. Tom knew where 32B was. A middle seat, standard economy, likely near the lavatories at the very back of the plane. The exact opposite of what he needed. "A middle seat in the back?" he asked, disbelief clear in his voice. "That will be extremely difficult for my knee on a 5-hour flight." "Sir," Susan said, her voice losing its polite edge, now tinged with impatience as other passengers began to look on. "I really need your cooperation here. The family is waiting to be seated, and we need to close the doors for departure. It is just for this one flight. We can offer you a complimentary beverage voucher for your trouble." A complimentary beverage voucher for giving up a carefully selected prepaid seat essential for his physical well-being to be crammed into a middle seat for 5 hours of pain. The offer felt insulting. "This is not about a beverage, young lady," Tom said, his voice still quiet, but with a new firmness. "This is about a confirmed booking for a medical necessity." Are you telling me airline policy forces me to aggravate a service-connected injury to accommodate a booking error made by the airline? The passengers in the nearby rows were now openly listening. The mother with the two young children stood a few rows back, looking anxious and embarrassed. Susan flushed slightly under Tom's steady gaze and the attention of other passengers. Sir, I am simply trying to follow procedure and ensure all passengers are accommodated appropriately. If you refuse to move, it will delay the flight for everyone. The subtle threat hung in the air. Tom recognized the tactic, public pressure, the implication that he was being selfish, an obstacle. He had seen it used in different contexts to different ends. He looked at the anxious mother at the restless children. He did not want to make a scene, did not want to delay the flight for everyone else, did not want to cause that family further distress, even though it was the airline's error, not his. With a heavy sigh, a feeling of weary resignation washing over him, Tom slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. All right, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I will move, but I want this noted. My name is Thomas Ashton, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, retired. This is not acceptable. He picked up his small bag and began the slow, painful process of extricating himself from the aisle seat, his knee already protesting. Susan offered a tight, relieved smile. Thank you for your understanding, sir. 32B middle. She then turned to usher the grateful family into Tom's vacated row. Her focus already shifted. Tom's sacrifice already just another problem solved in her busy day. Tom made his way slowly down the crowded aisle, wincing with each step as he navigated bags and outstretched legs. He finally reached 32B, a narrow middle seat between a large man already encroaching on the armrests and a young woman engrossed in her phone. He squeezed in, his knee immediately protesting the lack of space. The flight attendant who had directed him there offered no further assistance, no apology. He felt a familiar mix of anger, frustration, and helplessness. It was not just the physical discomfort. It was the casual dismissal, the lack of respect, the feeling of being an inconvenience. He closed his eyes, trying to manage the throbbing in his knee, the flight not even having left the gate yet. As he sat there, a fellow passenger in the row ahead, a businessman who had overheard the entire exchange at the front, discreetly pulled out his phone. He was a Diamond Elite frequent flyer and had a dedicated customer service number. He quickly typed out a message. Transcontinental Flight 308, Gate C12. Elderly Marine veteran Sergeant Thomas Ashton service, connected knee injury forced out of prepaid economy comfort aisle seat 15C into 32B middle to accommodate family. Flight attendant Susan dismissive of medical need. Grossly mishandled. Passenger is visibly distressed. Suggest immediate cockpit notification if possible. He hit send, hoping it would reach someone who cared more than the gate agent. He was not sure if it would do any good, but he felt he had to try something. The cabin doors closed. The safety briefing began. The plane pushed back from the gate. Tom braced himself for a long, painful flight. His granddaughter's graduation feeling a million miles away. 7 minutes passed. Then 8. The aircraft was taxiing towards the runway. Precisely 9 minutes after the cabin door had closed as the plane was holding short of the active runway, the cockpit door opened. This was unusual. Cockpit doors rarely opened after pushback unless there was an issue. The captain emerged, a man in his late 50s with a commanding presence, his uniform immaculate, for gold stripes on his epaulettes. He did not address the cabin immediately. Instead, his eyes scanned the rows, a serious expression on his face. He conferred briefly with the lead flight attendant, not Susan, but another more senior one, who pointed discreetly towards the back of the plane. The captain then began to walk down the aisle, his gaze sweeping the passengers. He stopped at row 32. His eyes found Tom squeezed uncomfortably in the middle seat. He looked at Tom's face, noted the discomfort, the quiet resignation. The captain paused, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then it softened with what looked like dawning recognition and respect. He stood in the narrow aisle directly in front of Tom's seat. Then, in full view of the surprised passengers in the rear cabin, Captain David Miller, himself a former Air Force pilot, drew himself up to his full height and rendered a crisp, formal military salute. Sergeant Thomas Ashton. The captain's voice was clear, carrying easily over the low hum of the engines. Sir, On behalf of Transcontinental Airlines, and as a fellow veteran, please accept my most profound apologies for the completely unacceptable way your seating has been handled on this flight. Tom looked up, stunned. Passengers craned their necks, whispering. The man beside Tom stopped encroaching on the armrest. Captain, Tom managed. Sergeant Ashton, Captain Miller continued, his voice firm but respectful. I was just made aware of your situation via a communication from our operations center triggered by a concerned passenger and cross-referenced with our Heroes Liaison alert system. Forcing you from your medically necessary pre-booked seat was a serious error in judgment and a failure of our airline's commitment to those who have served. It will be addressed. He then looked around. Is there a Miss Susan, flight attendant on this crew? Susan, who had been near the galley, appeared, looking pale and apprehensive. Captain Miller's gaze on her was like ice. Miss Susan, you will personally escort Sergeant Ashton to seat 1A in first class immediately. My co-pilot's jump seat is more comfortable than 32B. If first class is full, you will ask for a volunteer. If no one volunteers, you will explain to the passenger in 1A that the captain of this aircraft demands that seat for a Medal of Honor nominee who was severely mistreated by this airline. Understood. While Tom was not a Medal of Honor nominee in this story, the captain's strong, slightly exaggerated statement was for maximum effect. Susan nodded mutely, her face pale. The captain then turned back to Tom, his expression relaxing once more. Sergeant Ashton, please allow us to fix this. We owe you far more than an aisle seat. He helped Tom, who was still somewhat confused, out of the cramped middle seat. Passengers watched in stunned silence, many now looking at Tom with newfound respect and dawning realization. The businessman who had sent the message gave a subtle thumbs up. As Tom, assisted by a now deeply respectful and terrified Susan, made his way toward the front of the plane, Captain Miller spoke to the entire cabin over the intercom, his voice calm but authoritative. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain talking. We will have a slight delay in our departure this morning. Transcontinental Airlines is committed to honoring and respecting all our passengers, especially those who have served our nation with distinction. We had a serious failure in that commitment today regarding one such passenger, a decorated Marine veteran. That failure is being corrected. We appreciate your patience as we ensure all our heroes are treated with the dignity they deserve. We will be underway shortly. There was a smattering of clapping from the cabin. In first class, a passenger in 1A, having overheard the disturbance and the captain's announcement, quickly and willingly vacated his seat before Susan even had to ask. Tom was settled into the roomy first-class seat, his leg finally able to stretch out. The lead flight attendant brought him a pre-departure drink and offered a personal apology. Captain Miller came by one last time before returning to the cockpit. Again, Sergeant, my apologies. Enjoy your flight, and thank you for your service. Tom, finally comfortable, looked at the captain. Thank you, Captain, for yours, and for remembering. The flight to Boston was smooth and comfortable. Flight attendant Susan was conspicuously missing from the first-class cabin for the duration. Upon arrival, Tom was met at the gate by a Transcontinental Airlines Special Services agent who offered further apologies, a full refund for his original ticket, and a voucher for future first-class travel for himself and his granddaughter. The airline also initiated an immediate internal review of its family seating and veteran accommodation policies. Tom made it to his granddaughter's graduation, rested and in good spirits, his faith in basic human decency and the brotherhood of service quietly restored. He knew that systems could fail and people could be thoughtless, but he also knew that sometimes all it took was one person to make a call and one leader to make a stand to ensure that honor received its due, even at 30,000 feet. Subscribe to this channel if you believe true leaders step up and that our veterans should always be given the respect they have deserved.